I can only imagine what would it be like if Argentina did that. And I'm not talking about soccer. Anyway, let me start. We only have a little time. You guys must have learned the Dean Smith rule of basketball. You've controlled the ball here now for most of the time. The four-corner offense was in effect. Let me go to you, President Santos, and thank you so much for this honor to be here. I guess there's some issues in America. We have a very large Hispanic population. 10% of our electorate is going to be Hispanic in background. We are the second largest Spanish-speaking country in the world after Mexico. People have dual languages in the United States, of course, but they're so much Spanish-speaking. You have a chance to sit next to President Obama now. Do you want to ask him about the ways you think the United States could help your country in the drug war?
Chris, ¿no tiene una pregunta un poco más fácil?
Okay, how can we improve North-South relations, generally speaking?
No, lo que nosotros estamos diciendo es sencillamente lo siguiente, presidente Obama. Colombia ha sido tal vez el país que más ha sufrido de todos los países del planeta en esta lucha contra las drogas, el narcotráfico, en esta guerra contra las drogas. Una guerra que fue declarada por el presidente Nixon en el año 71, pero que viene de tiempo atrás, inclusive la famosa convención del opio en el año 2012. Y venimos luchando y venimos siendo exitosos, gracias, entre otras cosas, a la ayuda de los Estados Unidos. El Plan Colombia es tal vez la iniciativa bipartidista aprobada en el Congreso de los Estados Unidos de política exterior más exitosa en la historia reciente de los Estados Unidos. Y eso... Y es algo que nosotros aquí en Colombia agradecemos enormemente. Yo me acuerdo que aquí en Cartagena, yo era ministro de Hacienda cuando vino el presidente Clinton a lanzar el Plan Colombia, estábamos a punto de ser un Estado fallido, a ser declarado Estado fallido. Hoy la situación es totalmente distinta, entre otras cosas gracias al Plan Colombia, que era una forma de ayudarnos a luchar contra el narcotráfico y el poder de las mafias. Y hemos sido relativamente exitosos. Logramos aprender a pelear contra cada eslabón de la cadena del narcotráfico, desde el cultivo, los laboratorios, la interdicción, los activos de los narcotraficantes para quitárselos, el lavado de dinero, el sistema judicial, todo lo hemos ido mejorando, a tal punto que hoy estamos ofreciéndole ese tipo de ayuda a otros países que no tienen esas capacidades. O sea, nosotros podemos decir con todos los indicadores que hemos sido relativamente exitosos. Sin embargo, sabemos que nuestro éxito ha generado problemas en otros países, el famoso balloon effect, ¿no? El efecto de la bomba de agua que uno espicha a un lado y sale en el otro. Y a veces pedaleamos y pedaleamos y pedaleamos y nos sentimos como que estamos en una bicicleta estática. Entonces creo que ha llegado el momento simplemente de analizar si lo que estamos haciendo es lo mejor que podemos hacer, o si podemos de pronto encontrar una alternativa que sea más efectiva y menos costosa para la sociedad en general. Este es un tema con una altísima sensibilidad política. Nuevamente hablando de encuestas, si uno hace una encuesta en cualquier país y pregunta si las drogas se deben legalizar, la gente le va a decir inmediatamente que no. Las mamás de los niños que ven que están de pronto fumando marihuana o consumiendo cocaína van a decir por ningún motivo. Pero al mismo tiempo nosotros tenemos la obligación de ver si estamos haciendo lo mejor que podemos hacer o si hay alternativas que puedan ser más eficaces. Desde un extremo puede ser meter a todos los consumidores a la cárcel. El otro extremo es la legalización. En el intermedio puede haber políticas más prácticas, por ejemplo, despenalizar el consumo, pero concentrar todos los esfuerzos en la interdicción, en el tráfico. No sabemos qué hacer con los cultivos. Pero nada de eso se puede hacer si no tenemos verdadera información objetiva, técnica, analizada por expertos, expertos en salud pública, expertos en la lucha contra el crimen organizado, expertos en desarrollo alternativo, porque todas las discusiones, por lo menos las que yo he asistido en los últimos años, tienen una tremenda factor emotivo por la sensibilidad política del tema. Entonces, lo único que yo estoy diciendo es, sin bajar la guardia, porque en el caso colombiano no podemos bajar la guardia, porque para nosotros esto es un tema de seguridad nacional, porque el narcotráfico es lo que alimenta todos los grupos violentos en este país. No vamos a bajar la guardia, pero sí creo que tenemos la obligación como mundo, no como país, como mundo, de analizar si lo que estamos haciendo es lo mejor que se puede. De pronto llegamos a la conclusión de que dentro de muchos males este es el mal menor y seguimos haciendo, pero de pronto con un análisis objetivo, riguroso, podemos llegar a otra conclusión. Eso es lo único que estamos haciendo.
You want me to respond to it?
Yes, sir.
Well, this is a conversation that I've had with President Santos and others. Just as the world economy is integrated, so unfortunately the drug trade is integrated. And we can't look at the issue of supply in Latin America without also looking at the issue of demand in the United States. Whether it's working with President Santos or supporting the courageous work that President Calderon is doing in Mexico, I personally and my administration, and I think the American people understand that the toll of narco-trafficking on the societies of Central America, the Caribbean, and parts of South America are brutal and undermining the capacity of those countries to protect their citizens and eroding institutions and corrupting institutions in ways that are ultimately bad for everybody. So this is part of the reason why we've invested, Chris, about $30 billion in prevention programs, drug treatment programs, looking at the drug issue not just from a law enforcement and interdiction issue, but also from a public health perspective. This is why we've worked in unprecedented fashion in cooperation with countries like Mexico on not just drugs coming north, but also guns and cash going south. This is one of the reasons why we have continued to invest in programs like Plan Colombia, but also now are working and my administration's position is that legalization is not the answer. That, in fact, if you think about how it would end up operating, the capacity of a large-scale drug trade to dominate certain countries if they were allowed to operate legally without any constraint could be just as corrupting, if not more corrupting, than the status quo. Nevertheless, I'm a big believer in looking at the evidence, having a debate. I think ultimately what we're going to find is that the way to solve this problem is both in the United States, us dealing with demand in a more effective way, but it's also going to be strengthening institutions at home. You mentioned earlier the biggest thing that's on everybody's minds, whether it's the United States, Canada, Brazil, Colombia, Jamaica, is can I find a job that allows me to support my family and allows my children to advance and feel secure? And in those societies where you've got strong institutions, you've got strong business investment, you've got rule of law, you have a law enforcement infrastructure that is sound, and an economy that's growing, that country is going to be like a healthy body that is more immune than countries that have weak institutions and high unemployment, in which kids see their only future as participating in the drug trade because nobody's actually trained them to get a job with Google or Pepsi or start their own small business. And so I think that it's important for us not to think that if somehow we look at the drug issue in isolation, in the absence of dealing with some of these other challenges, institutional challenges and barriers to growth and opportunity and the capacity for people to climb their way out of poverty, that we're going to be able to solve this problem. The drug issue in this region is in some ways a cause, but it's also in some ways an effect of some broader and underlying problems, and we as the United States have an obligation not only to get our own house in order, but also to help countries in a partnership to try to see if we can move in a better direction.
Thank you, Mr. President. President Rousseff, let's go back to the big picture of the whole question of this hemisphere and the future. We've had in the past bad relations between North and South. We've also had attempts at good relations. Franklin Roosevelt's good neighbor policy, Kennedy's Alliance for Progress. Your country is enormously important now in the world. It's a global power. It's one of the leading BRIC countries in the world. As you look to the future of the 21st century, what do you think the model should be for hemispheric relations among the nations of the hemisphere? Should it be different than it's been? Is there a new model that you foresee between North and South?
O modelo que eu acredito que é o modelo adequado é um modelo de parceria, mas de diálogo entre iguais. Eu acredito que no passado as relações assimétricas entre o Norte e o Sul foram responsáveis por processos muito negativos nos nossos países. Mesmo que nós não possamos e não devamos voltar atrás e nos impregnar de padrões e raciocínios do passado, é importante que se diga que, durante um período muito grande, no caso dos últimos anos, durante 20 anos, a América Latina viveu em recessão, desemprego, ampliação da desigualdade e, o que é pior, a ausência de perspectiva de crescimento. Esse processo recente que ocorreu na América Latina é um processo de afirmação da importância da sua população. Hoje, quando você ali me disse que o Brasil tinha de ser cumprimentado por ser ter o sexto produto interno bruto do mundo, eu te disse que eu acreditava que esse é um bom cumprimento, mas um governante e um país e seus empresários têm de responder uma pergunta: para quem? Para quem nós temos o sexto PIB do mundo? Tem de ser para a população brasileira. E aí eu concordo tanto com o que disse o presidente Obama como com o que disse o presidente Santos a respeito de empregos e, sobretudo, a respeito de distribuição de renda. No Brasil, nós não basta só a gente criar empregos. Nós temos, além de criar empregos, crescer a ponto de ter condições de distribuir renda. Por isso, eu acredito que o crescimento virtuoso o relacionamento virtuoso é o relacionamento que respeita a soberania dos países e mais, que olha o desenvolvimento recíproco como sendo um elemento crucial. E nós temos condições de ter esse desenvolvimento. Eu queria enfatizar a educação. Queria enfatizar o fato que a educação de qualidade se constitui no grande objetivo dos nossos governos latino-americanos, porque isso significa a capacidade dos nossos países de serem de fato independentes, de serem capazes de agregar valor, de gerar ciência, de gerar tecnologia e de gerar inovação. Nós não podemos nos contentar, apesar de ser muito importante, de sermos produtores de matérias-primas, alimentos e energia em bruto. Nós temos de ter a ambição de sermos países que, nesse século XXI, se relacionam com os demais países dentro de uma visão que esse século XXI é o século do conhecimento. Esse século XXI é o século em que o principal desafio é que nós sejamos capazes de criar sociedades em que as nossas populações tenham acesso, talvez, ao que é eu diria assim, o maior e o melhor produto do crescimento equilibrado de um país, que é garantir oportunidade para todos e, sobretudo, garantir educação. Se nós não formos capazes de assegurar educação, capacitação da mão de obra, uma indústria capaz de agregar valor, de ser competitiva e, sobretudo, de ser produtiva, em termos de que tem uma produtividade elevada, nós não geraremos as condições de nos transformarmos em nações desenvolvidas. O Brasil quer se transformar em nação desenvolvida e, para isso, não basta o PIB crescer 6%. Daí porque nós temos de ter processos integradores, daí porque é importante a relação Norte-Sul, daí porque uma relação mais equilibrada entre os países desenvolvidos, emergentes e o desenvolvimento é uma ação que vai beneficiar a todos. Porque vocês imaginam esse continente com 700, mais de 700, quase 1 bilhão de pessoas, o que seria esse continente com pessoas sendo capazes de produzir, de consumir, mas, sobretudo, sendo pessoas educadas com condições de agregar valor? Eu vejo nessa parceria entre nós uma parceria necessariamente entre iguais. Ninguém produz ciência, produz conhecimento, produz educação de qualidade entre pessoas ou entre países que um é superior ao outro. Nós todos temos experiência disso. Nós somos países coloniais, todos, incluindo o próprio Estados Unidos, que teve uma campanha pela independência e teve de ir à guerra civil defendendo a sua soberania. Todos nós sabemos que não há diálogo entre pessoas e entre países desiguais. Só há diálogo efetivo, só há troca efetiva e só há cooperação efetiva se nós nos colocarmos como sendo países que dependem uns dos outros para tornar esse mundo mais próspero. E aí tem uma coisa importante que a gente tem sempre de destacar. Esse é um país que viveu 140, esse continente, viveu 140 anos em paz. Nós não temos, recentemente, estados de conflito, de guerra, de diferença religiosa. E isso cria as condições institucionais para que nós prossigamos no rumo da prosperidade. E eu concordo, e acho aqui, louvo o presidente Obama pela iniciativa do governo aberto. Acho que é fundamental para os nossos países a prática da transparência, a prática do monitoramento, do controle, da verificação. Não só para o ambiente de negócios, mas, sobretudo, para que a gente garanta serviços públicos de qualidade para as nossas populações. Para que a gente possa dar educação de qualidade, nós teremos de ter também um padrão de meritocracia nas nossas atividades como estados e governos. Um padrão de eficiência, um padrão de respeito ao cidadão. Eu acho uma excelente iniciativa essa que o presidente Obama teve no que se refere ao governo aberto e da qual o Brasil é co-presidente.
Thank you. Thank you. I've just gotten a call that we have 4 or 5 minutes left. Mr. President, do you want to respond? I think the question that seems to be apparent here in the last couple of days is, first of all, tremendous enthusiasm and a zeitgeist here that's almost unusual in the world for positive optimism about the development of this part of the world. It's not like it was. It just isn't the way it was we grew up with. The challenge, I think, you just heard from the President of Brazil was the notion that Latin America is not interested in being our complementary economy anymore. The agricultural end, while we do the industrial end. They do the provision of raw materials, and we do the finest, highest level, high-tech work. How do you respond to Brazil's demand, really, to be partners and rivals? They want to use our educational resources. They want to come north to learn how to compete with us. Right, Mr. President, Madam President?
Well,
you want to be equals. You want to learn everything we know and then take it back and shove it at us, right? Isn't that it? Well, anyway, that's the response. I'm asking for your response.
Chris, I'm not sure you're characterizing what President Rousseff said, but this is what happens when you get some of our U.S. political commentators moderating a panel. They try to stir up things that may not always be there, but and Chris is good at it. He's one of the best. But look, this is already happening. This has already happened. Brazil has changed, Colombia has changed, and we welcome the change. The notion somehow that we see this as a problem is just not the case, because if we've got a strong, growing, prosperous middle class in Latin America, those are new customers for our businesses. We want Brazil is growing, and that opportunity is broad-based. Then suddenly they're interested in buying iPads, and they're interested in buying Boeing airplanes.
Ou Embraer.
I was just trying to see how she'd respond to that. But the point is that that's a market for us. So we in the United States should welcome not just growth, but broad-based growth of the sort that President Rousseff described. I'll give you just, I said I was in Tampa. All those containers that are coming in, they have, in some cases, commodities coming from Latin America, but they also have finished products that are coming in from Latin America. We have commodities that are going into Latin America that we're sending back on those containers, as well as finished products. And so this is a two-way street. When I came into office, one of my first decisions was to say that the G20 was not a temporary thing to respond to the world economic crisis. This should be the permanent form for determining and coordinating direction in the world economy. And frankly, there were some folks who were members of the G8 who were upset with me about that determination. But realistically, you can't coordinate world economic issues if you don't have China and Brazil and India and South Africa at the table, and Mexico. That's not possible. So the world has changed. I think the United States and U.S. businesses stand to benefit from those changes. But it does mean that we have to adapt to that competitive environment, and all the advantages that President Rousseff mentioned we have as the United States, its flexibility, our scientific edge, our well-educated workforce, our top universities, those are the things that we continue to have to build and get better at. And that's true for every country here. Every one of the businesses here are going to be making determinations about where you locate based on the quality of the workforce how much investment do you have to make in training somebody to handle $1 million piece of equipment? Do you feel as if your intellectual property is going to be protected? Do you feel as if there's a good infrastructure to be able to get your products to market? And so I think this is a healthy competition that we should be encouraging. And what I've said at the first summit that I came to, Summit of the Americas that I came to, was we do not believe there are junior partners and senior partners in this situation. We believe there are partners. And Brazil is in many ways ahead of us on something like biofuels. Well, we should learn from them. And if we're going to be trying to mount a regional initiative, let's make sure that Brazil's taking the lead. It doesn't have to be us in every situation. Now, the flip side is, and I'll close with this, I think in Latin America, part of the change in mentality is also not always looking to the United States as the reason for everything that happens that goes wrong. So, I was in an interview, several interviews yesterday. These were actually with Spanish-speaking television stations that have broadcast back in the United States. And the first interviewer said, why hasn't the United States done more to promote democracy in the region? Because you've done a lot in the Arab Spring, but it seems as if you're not dealing with some of the problems here in Latin America. The next questioner said, why are you being so hard on Cuba and promoting democracy all the time? So, but that's an example, I think, of some of the challenges we face that are rooted in legitimate historical grievances, but it becomes a habit. And when it comes to economic integration and exchanges, I'm completely sympathetic to the fact that there are challenges around monetary policy in developed and less developed countries. And Brazil, for example, has seen the real appreciate in ways that have been hurtful. I would argue a lot of that has to do with the failure of some other countries to engage in rebalancing, not the United States. But having said that, I think there's not a country in Latin America who doesn't want to see the United States grow rapidly because we're your major export market. And so most of these issues end up being complicated issues. Typically, they involve both actions in the United States as well as actions in the other countries if we're going to optimize the kind of growth and prosperity and broad-based opportunity that both President Santos and President Rousseff have spoken about. And the United States comes here and says, we're ready to do business. We are open to a partnership. We don't expect to be able to dictate the terms of that partnership. We expect it to be a negotiation based on mutual interest and mutual respect, and I think we're all going to benefit as a consequence of that.
Thank you. The hombre in the middle, Mr. President Santos, you want to finish?
Yo solamente quiero dar un ejemplo concreto para responder a la pregunta de cómo invirtiendo en otro país no significa que ese país va a ser la competencia y todos ganamos, sino todo lo contrario. Todos perdemos, sino todo lo contrario, todos ganamos. Y voy a dar el ejemplo concreto con nombre. Hace unas semanas estuvo el presidente de una empresa no americana, europea, Unilever. Me dijo, yo quiero venir a su país e invertir una plata importante. Le pregunté por qué. Me dijo, mire, nosotros tenemos que buscar fuentes de crecimiento para nuestra empresa, para nuestros productos. Ustedes en América Latina están sacando millones de personas de la pobreza. Aquí en Colombia usted tiene en marcha un plan donde va a sacar de la pobreza extrema X cantidad, 1.200.000 y más de 6, 7 millones de la pobreza. Esos son potenciales consumidores de mis productos y van a ser consumidores permanentes. Por eso para mí es un inmenso negocio, para mi país es un inmenso negocio, para la economía del mundo y para usted como colombiano es un inmenso negocio. Todos ganamos. Por eso, si abordamos los problemas con esa mentalidad y los empresarios aquí presentes son los que ejecutan las políticas que los presidentes ponemos en marcha, ahí todos podemos ganar. Y si vamos a las universidades de los Estados Unidos a aprender y aplicamos lo que aprendimos en nuestros países y somos más prósperos, pues va a ser también más próspero Estados Unidos, porque también, así como ustedes son un mercado importantísimo, nosotros somos su mercado más importante. Entonces, creo que ahí todos ganamos. Gracias.
Thank you very much, President Rousseff, President Santos, and my President Obama. Thank you. It's been an honor.
Thank you.
Obrigado, Cris.
Muchas gracias a los señores presidentes. Muchas gracias a Chris Matthews.